Did you know that a plant sitting in the checkout line at your local nursery could put your child in the emergency room before dinner? It sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. Today, we're counting down 7 of the most dangerous plants you should think twice about buying. And number 3 is something so common you probably have it in a pot on your porch right now. Stick around because by the end of this video, you'll never walk through a garden center the same way again. I've talked to horticulturists, vets, and poison control specialists while putting this list together, and the thing that surprised me most is how little warning these plants come with. No sticker, no tag, no fine print, just a price and a smile from the cashier. Organizations like the ASPCA, the National Capital Poison Center, and the Royal Horticultural Society all publish extensive lists of hazardous plants, yet nurseries keep stocking them because, frankly, they sell. Before we get into it, go ahead and hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This channel is all about keeping your home, your kids, and your pets safe, and future videos will cover even more hidden hazards hiding in plain sight. It genuinely helps this channel grow, and it might help you avoid a very bad day. And one more thing before we start the countdown. None of this is about scaring you away from gardening altogether. Plants are one of the best things you can bring into a home. They clean the air, they lift your mood, and they give kids a wonderful way to connect with nature. This list exists so you can enjoy all of that without any nasty surprises waiting behind the pretty flowers. So keep an open mind, maybe grab a notepad, and let's get into it. Let's get started with number 7. Number 7 is Angel's Trumpet, or Brugmansia if you want to sound fancy at the garden center. This plant is an absolute showstopper. Its enormous trumpet-shaped flowers dangle down in shades of white, peach, and soft yellow. And in the evening they release a perfume so intoxicating that people plant it right next to patios and bedroom windows just to enjoy the scent at night. Nurseries market it as a tropical centerpiece, and honestly, it's easy to see the appeal. It grows fast, gets huge, and looks like something out of a botanical garden. But that same fragrance is a warning sign in disguise. Every part of Angel's Trumpet, the flowers, the leaves, the seeds, contains powerful tropine alkaloids, compounds that interfere directly with your nervous system. Ingesting even a small amount can cause a racing heart, dilated pupils, dry mouth, hallucinations, and in more serious cases, seizures or coma. This isn't a plant that causes a mild stomach ache. It messes with your brain chemistry. There's a reason this plant has a dark reputation in some parts of the world. In regions of South America, extracts from Brugmansia have historically been used, sometimes maliciously, to disorient or incapacitate people, which tells you exactly how potent these compounds are. Emergency rooms in the United States still see a steady trickle of cases every year, often teenagers experimenting after reading about its psychoactive effects online. Not realizing that the line between a trip and a toxic overdose is razor thin. Pets aren't spared either. Dogs that chew on fallen flowers or leaves can develop tremors, disorientation, and rapid heart rates within an hour. So what should you plant instead if you love that big, tropical, fragrant look? Try a moonflower vine grown responsibly with supervision, or better yet, go with a gardenia. You still get large, fragrant white blooms and that same lush, exotic feel, but without the alkaloid cocktail hiding inside every petal. And if Angel's Trumpet worried you, wait until you hear about number 6. It's a plant often sold as a fall blooming bulb, and people plant it expecting a pretty surprise. What they don't expect is that it's more toxic than arsenic gram for gram. Number 6 is autumn crocus, sometimes labeled as colchicum at the nursery. In late summer and early fall, this plant pushes up delicate, crocus-like flowers in shades of lilac and pink, seemingly out of nowhere since it blooms before its leaves even appear. Gardeners love it because it fills that awkward gap when most other flowers have already finished for the season. It's sold in bulb form right alongside daffodils and tulips, often with zero indication of how dangerous it actually is. Here's the problem. Autumn crocus contains a chemical called colchicine, which is so toxic that poison centers rank it among the deadliest plant compounds known. Symptoms don't show up right away, which makes it even more dangerous. Someone might eat a leaf or bulb, feel fine for several hours, and then suddenly develop vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. From there, it can progress to organ failure, bone marrow suppression, and death, sometimes over the course of several days. There is no specific antidote. Doctors can only treat the symptoms and hope the body pulls through. There have been documented poisonings from people confusing the bulbs with wild garlic or onions, since they look remarkably similar when dug up. In a handful of tragic cases, entire families have been hospitalized after autumn crocus leaves were mistakenly added to a salad or soup. For pets, especially dogs that like to dig up and chew on bulbs, the outcome can be just as grim. If you want that unexpected pop of fall color, plant colchicum's safer cousin instead, the true autumn-blooming crocus species like Crocus sativus, or simply go with asters, which bloom in similar shades and are non-toxic to people and pets. Now, if you thought a flower bulb could be that dangerous, wait until you meet number 5. It's a shrub often used in hedges and privacy screens, and almost every part of it can stop your heart, quite literally. Number 5 is yew. If you've ever seen a neatly trimmed dark green hedge lining a driveway or property border, there's a good chance you were looking at yew. It's a nursery favorite because it tolerates heavy pruning, stays green all year, and can be shaped into anything from a simple hedge to elaborate topiary. Landscapers love it for exactly that reason. It's forgiving and low maintenance. But nearly every part of the yew plant, the needles, bark, and seeds, contains a compound called taxane, which directly affects the heart's electrical activity. Ingesting even a small amount of foliage can cause an irregular heartbeat, difficulty breathing, tremors, and sudden cardiac arrest, sometimes with no warning symptoms beforehand. What makes yew especially dangerous is that, unlike many toxic plants, there's often no time for treatment. Death can occur within hours, sometimes before anyone realizes what happened. Livestock poisonings from yew are well documented, with horses and cattle dying after browsing on hedge clippings tossed over a fence. Something that still happens today when homeowners trim their yew and dispose of the branches carelessly. Dogs that chew on fallen twigs or berries are also at serious risk, and veterinary toxicology reports consistently list yew as one of the most acutely lethal ornamental plants in cultivation. What makes this even more unsettling is how normal yew looks in everyday landscaping. It's not exotic, it's not rare, it's the plant lining the entrance of office parks, churches, and suburban front yards all over the country. Homeowners trim it every year without gloves, without a second thought, and toss the clippings into a compost pile or over the back fence where curious animals can reach them. The plant's quiet, unassuming presence is exactly what makes it so easy to overlook as a threat. If you want that same dense, dark green, easily shaped hedge, consider boxwood or holly instead. Both give you that formal, manicured look without carrying a compound that can stop a heart mid-beat. And speaking of plants people don't expect danger from, number 4 might be the biggest surprise on this entire list. It's often praised as a native wildflower, and some people even eat parts of it on purpose, which makes the danger even harder to see coming. Number 4 is pokeweed. In late summer, pokeweed puts on quite a show: tall reddish-purple stems, clusters of white flowers, and deep purple-black berries that look almost like large blueberries. Because it's a North American native, some nurseries and native plant enthusiasts actually promote it for wildlife gardens, since birds love the berries and the plant supports pollinators. It has a reputation as a rustic, old-fashioned addition to a cottage garden. Here's where it gets complicated. Pokeweed contains a mix of toxins including phytolactotoxin and oxalate crystals, concentrated most heavily in the roots but present throughout the entire plant, including the berries that look so tempting to children. Eating even a handful of raw berries can cause severe vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal cramping, and in larger quantities, it can lead to dangerously low blood pressure and breathing difficulties. The roots are the most dangerous part of all, and cases of severe poisoning have occurred when people mistook them for other edible roots like horseradish or parsnip while digging in the garden. There's also a cultural wrinkle here. Poke salad, a traditional southern dish, is made from pokeweed leaves, but only after a very specific multiple boil process that removes most of the toxins. Even then, poison control centers still field calls every year from people who didn't prepare it correctly and ended up violently ill. If professional cooks with generations of family recipes can get this wrong, it's not a risk worth taking in a home garden with curious kids or pets around. If you like that wild, native, berry-producing look for pollinators, go with elderberry instead. It has a similar silhouette and supports the same birds and beneficial insects, but its berries are safe once cooked, and the plant overall carries a far lower risk profile. Now, if pokeweed surprised you, number 3 is going to hit even closer to home because there's a very good chance you already own this exact plant. Number 3 is lantana. Walk into almost any garden center in spring or summer and you'll find trays of lantana practically overflowing with color. Clusters of tiny flowers in fiery oranges, yellows, pinks, and reds that shift shades as they age. It's an absolute pollinator magnet, drawing in butterflies and hummingbirds all season long, which is exactly why it's become a staple in patio pots, hanging baskets, and border plantings across the country. It's tough, drought-tolerant, and blooms for months, making it one of the most forgiving plants you can buy. The danger hides in the berries. As the flowers fade, lantana produces small green berries that ripen to a deep blue-black, and to a child, they look remarkably like little grapes or blueberries. Unripe green berries are the most toxic, containing compounds called lantidines that primarily attack the liver. Ingesting them can cause vomiting, lethargy, and in more serious cases, liver damage and photosensitivity, where the skin becomes painfully sensitive to sunlight. Grazing animals are especially vulnerable, and there are well-documented cases of cattle and sheep dying after eating lantana that had spread into pasture land. For families with small children, the real risk comes from how ordinary lantana looks sitting in a patio pot at toddler height, with berries that are practically at eye level for a curious 2-year-old. Pediatric poison control calls related to lantana berry ingestion spike every summer, right alongside the plant's peak blooming season. If you want that same non-stop, multicolored, pollinator-friendly display, try verbena or zinnias instead. Both bloom just as generously and attract the same butterflies and hummingbirds without leaving toxic berries at snack height for toddlers. We're halfway through the danger zone, but trust me, number 2 might be the one that changes how you decorate your home for the holidays. Number 2 is lily of the valley. Few plants have a reputation as sweet and innocent as this one. Delicate white bell-shaped flowers dangle beneath broad green leaves, and the fragrance is so beloved it's been bottled into perfumes for over a century. It's often associated with weddings, spring gardens, and old-fashioned charm, and it spreads easily as a low-growing ground cover, which makes it a popular, low-maintenance choice for shady spots where little else will grow. But underneath that innocent image is a plant containing cardiac glycosides, similar in effect to the compounds found in foxglove and oleander. Every part of lily of the valley, the flowers, leaves, stems, and especially the small red berries it produces later in the season, can disrupt heart rhythm if ingested. Symptoms include nausea, vomiting, blurred vision, confusion, and a dangerously slowed or irregular heartbeat. Even the water in a vase that's held cut lily of the valley stems has been shown to carry enough toxin to cause illness if swallowed. What makes this one particularly sneaky is how often it shows up unsupervised. It's frequently planted under trees or along shaded walkways where children play, and its sweet scent practically invites little hands to pick a bouquet. There have been reported cases of toddlers becoming seriously ill after simply putting the flowers or berries in their mouths. And pets that dig in garden beds are just as much at risk from the roots and spreading rhizomes. If you love that graceful, shade-loving spring charm, consider planting hostas or astilbe instead. Both thrive in the same low-light conditions and bring texture and color to a shaded garden without a single cardiac glycoside in sight. Which brings us to number 1, the plant that might be the most alarming entry on this entire list, not because it's exotic or rare, but because it's sold, gifted, and displayed in millions of homes every single year, often with children and pets wandering right past it. Number 1 is the sago palm. You've almost certainly seen this plant before, even if you didn't know its name. With its stiff, feathery, dark green fronds radiating out from a thick central trunk, it looks like a miniature palm tree. And it's sold everywhere from big box garden centers to home decor stores as a low-maintenance statement piece for entryways, offices, and patios. It thrives with very little care, tolerates neglect, and keeps its sculptural good looks year-round. Which is exactly why it's become such a popular choice for people who want greenery without the effort. Every single part of the sago palm is toxic, but the seeds are by far the most dangerous, containing a compound called psychocin that attacks the liver directly. For pets, especially dogs, chewing on a fallen seed or even a small piece of frond can trigger vomiting, diarrhea, and within a day or two, severe liver failure. Veterinary toxicologists consistently rank sago palm as one of the single most lethal common houseplants, with survival rates dropping sharply once liver symptoms begin. Unlike many plant poisonings where quick treatment turns things around, sago palm poisoning often progresses even with aggressive veterinary care. The tragedy is how ordinary these cases look at first. A dog finds a seed that dropped from an outdoor sago palm, chews on it while playing in the yard, and seems completely fine for hours. By the time vomiting starts, the toxin is already working its way through the liver, and by the time an owner realizes something is seriously wrong, treatment options have narrowed considerably. Veterinary hospitals report these cases year-round, but especially in warmer climates where sago palms are planted directly in the ground rather than kept in pots. What makes the sago palm particularly heartbreaking is the cost involved. Treating liver failure in a dog often requires days of hospitalization, intensive fluid therapy, and repeated blood work, and even with aggressive treatment, a significant number of cases still don't survive. Veterinarians describe it as one of the few plant poisonings where they genuinely dread seeing the diagnosis come back positive, simply because there's so little they can do once the liver damage has progressed. And because the plant is sold as a small potted tabletop version just as often as a full-sized outdoor specimen, the risk follows it from garden centers straight into apartments and living rooms with no yard at all. If you want that same architectural, palm-like silhouette without risking your pet's life, choose a ponytail palm or an areca palm instead. Both deliver the same dramatic, tropical look, and both are completely safe if a curious paw or mouth gets a little too close. Take a second and think about how many of these 7 you've actually seen in person. Maybe even owned at some point without a single clue about what was really sitting on your windowsill or lining your driveway. That's the whole point of this list. These aren't rare, hard-to-find plants locked away in a botanical garden somewhere. They're mainstream, affordable, and often marketed as beginner-friendly, which makes the lack of warning labels even more frustrating. Before we wrap up, I want to run through a few honorable mentions, plants that didn't quite crack the top 7 but are absolutely still worth knowing about. First, azaleas and rhododendrons. These spring-blooming shrubs are everywhere in nurseries, covered in vibrant clusters of pink, red, and purple flowers. They contain compounds called grayonotoxins which can cause vomiting, dangerously low blood pressure, and in severe cases, heart complications if ingested by pets or people. Next, oleander. This one deserves a mention because it remains one of the most commonly sold ornamental shrubs despite containing potent cardiac toxins in every part of the plant, including the smoke if branches are burned. A single leaf has been enough to cause serious poisoning in a small child. And finally, English ivy. It climbs walls, drapes over fences, and gets sold constantly as a fast, hardy ground cover. But its leaves and berries contain compounds that can cause vomiting, abdominal pain, and skin irritation. especially in pets that like to nibble on trailing vines. None of these plants are rare or exotic, that's exactly the point. They're common, affordable, and sitting on shelves at almost every nursery in the country, usually without a single word of warning attached. So let's close out with a few practical safety tips you can actually use the next time you're shopping for plants. First, always look up the scientific name of a plant before you buy it, not just the cute common name printed on the tag. A 10-second search on your phone can reveal toxicity information that the price tag conveniently leaves out. Second, if you ever suspect a child or pet has eaten part of a plant you're unsure about, don't wait to see what happens. For pets, call your veterinarian or an emergency animal poison hotline immediately. For people, contact poison control or head straight to the emergency room. With several of the plants on this list, waiting even a few hours can be the difference between a full recovery and a life-threatening emergency. Third, walk through your existing yard and garden with fresh eyes. Plants you've had for years might be sitting right there, especially if you moved into a home with established landscaping. It costs nothing to identify what's already growing around your kids and pets. And a single afternoon spent walking the property with a plant identification app can uncover risks you never knew you were living with. Fourth, if you have toddlers or curious pets in the house, consider a simple rule of thumb: keep anything with berries, seed pods, or showy flowers up high or outside the reach of little hands and paws entirely. It's not a perfect solution, but distance and height alone prevent a huge number of accidental poisonings every year. And here's your bonus tip. When shopping for pet-safe or child-safe greenery, look specifically for nurseries or online retailers that label their plants as non-toxic to pets, since more of them are starting to add this information as awareness grows. It's a small ask that can save you a terrifying trip to the emergency room. So there you have it, 7 plants you should think twice about before bringing home from the nursery, plus a few honorable mentions that deserve your attention too. They're beautiful, they're popular, and they're sold without a hint of warning, which means the responsibility falls on us to know better before we buy. Now I want to hear from you. Which one of these surprised you the most? Was it the sago palm quietly sitting in so many living rooms, the deceptively sweet lily of the valley, or the fiery lantana blooming in pots on porches everywhere? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and I love hearing which plants you've encountered in your own gardens. If this video helped you look at your yard a little differently, hit that like button, share it with a fellow plant lover, and subscribe so you never miss the next video on garden safety and plant care. Thanks so much for watching, stay safe out there in the garden, and I'll see you in the next one.